It happened so fast that most people on the sidewalk thought they were witnessing a mugging. "Hey, I said stop!" Officer Daniel's voice tore through the air like a warning siren. But he wasn't chasing a criminal. He was marching toward a black woman sitting alone on a bench, quietly eating the sandwich she'd barely had time to pack that morning. Her hospital scrubs were wrinkled. Her ID badge still hung from her neck. Her hands were still trembling from the last patient she'd tried to save. Her name was Nia Brooks, a 32-year-old trauma nurse who had worked 14 hours straight with no break. She had exactly 9 minutes to eat before she had to rush back inside, but she never made it past bite number 2. Officer Daniels towered over her, one hand already resting on his cuffs. "You think I don't see what you're doing?" he barked, loud enough for passing strangers to stop. "Get up, now!" Nia blinked, confused. "Sir, I'm just on my lunch." "Don't lie to me," he snapped, stepping even closer. "I saw you near that parked car. You were trying door handles." Nia shook her head, stunned. "No, I work here. I'm a nurse. I was just—" But he didn't let her finish. He snatched her hospital ID off her neck so violently, the lanyard snapped and fell to the pavement. People gasped. Others pulled out their phones. Some whispered, "I think she works inside. I've seen her before." But no one stepped forward. Not yet. Officer Daniels leaned in, eyes cold. "You think a fake ID is gonna fool me?" he sneered. As if she were a criminal. As if she hadn't spent her morning saving strangers who would never know her name. Her breath caught in her chest. This wasn't happening. Not here. Not outside the very hospital she'd devoted her life to. "Sir, please, I'm not resisting," Nia said softly, raising her hands so he could see them clearly. "I just need to go back to my shift. One of my patients is critical." His lip curled. "Oh, now she's a doctor," he mocked loudly, exaggerating every word so the bystanders could hear. "Next, she'll tell me she's the president." Laughter rippled through the small crowd. Her face burned. Not from guilt, not from shame, but from a sudden, overwhelming humiliation that pressed against her ribs until it hurt to breathe. Daniels didn't care. He grabbed her arm so roughly she winced. "Stand up. Turn around. Hands behind your back." The metal cuffs bit into her wrists before she could even process what was happening. "Please, please don't do this," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I didn't do anything. Please." But he had already decided she was nothing more than a stereotype he had created in his mind. "You nurses think you're saints, walking around like you're better than everyone else. Newsflash, your little badge doesn't mean you get to break the law." "I didn't—" He twisted her arms tighter. A man in a suit stepped out of the crowd. "Officer, I think you're making a mistake. She works here." Daniels cut him off. "Step back, sir, unless you want to be next." The man backed away reluctantly. Nia's eyes filled with tears, not because she was scared, but because she knew exactly how this would end. Black plus tired plus alone equals guilty. Every time. She didn't even fight when the officer shoved her forward toward his patrol car. Cameras were everywhere now, phones raised, whispers intensifying. Someone muttered, "Why's he arresting a nurse?" Another said, "She didn't even stand up." Officer Daniels smirked as he opened the back door. "Look at you, in uniform, and still out here breaking into cars. Bet the hospital doesn't know who they hired." Nia closed her eyes. She thought about her mother telling her to always stay calm. She thought about her patients. She thought about her shift starting again in 7 minutes. But most of all, she thought about how fragile a black woman's dignity becomes when someone powerful decides she doesn't deserve it. And then, just as Daniels put his hand on her head to push her into the squad car, a voice boomed from behind the crowd, a voice filled with fury, a voice the entire hospital recognized instantly. "Officer, what exactly do you think you're doing to my nurse?" The crowd parted.
The air changed, and Officer Daniels' expression dropped from smug superiority to something he had never expected to feel today: fear. The voice cut through the chaos like a crack of thunder. "Officer Daniels, release her, now." Every head turned, phones lowered. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath.
Walking through the stunned crowd was Dr. Leonard Graham, the hospital director for the entire region. Silver hair, crisp navy suit, badge clipped to his belt, the kind of presence that commanded a room without raising his voice. Except today, his voice was raised, and it was aimed directly at the officer gripping Naya's arm. Officer Daniels blinked, confused. He had expected a nurse supervisor, maybe, or a security guard. Not this. "Sir," Daniels said stiffly, "this woman is being detained. Step aside." Dr. Graham didn't step aside. He stepped closer, close enough that Daniels had to tilt his head back slightly to look him in the eye. "Officer," Graham said slowly, "you have approximately 5 seconds to tell me why one of my trauma nurses is in handcuffs during her shift." A ripple of gasps moved through the crowd. Daniels scoffed, trying to reclaim his authority. "Your nurse? Sir, this woman has saved more lives this month than you've saved in your entire career." Graham snapped, his voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. The crowd murmured. Daniels' nostrils flared. "Look, I don't care if she's the Queen of England," he barked. "She was attempting to break into vehicles, multiple witnesses." "There are security cameras right above us," Graham shot back immediately. "Let's check them, right now." Daniels hesitated. That single hesitation told the crowd everything. Someone whispered, "He didn't even look up before accusing her. I saw her, she was just eating lunch. He grabbed her for no reason. Look at those marks." Daniels felt the attention shift. He could feel his control slipping like water between his fingers. So he doubled down. "It's standard procedure," he insisted. "She fits the description of someone we're looking for." That did it. Naya's eyes closed in pain, the same sentence she'd heard 100 times in 100 different ways. Fits the description. Means she was black. That was enough. Dr. Graham's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "Your description, officer. Did it also include hospital scrubs with our logo embroidered on the chest and an ID badge with biometric clearance?" Daniel swallowed. The crowd was shifting fully now, from curious to uncomfortable to angry. Graham turned to the bystanders. "Did anyone here see this woman touching a single car?" A chorus of no spread instantly. One woman, older, maybe in her 70s, stepped forward, her voice trembling with righteous fury. "I watched the whole thing. She was eating lunch. He marched right up and grabbed her without even asking." Another man chimed in. "He yanked her ID off. It looked violent." Someone else added, "She wasn't doing anything. He was bullying her." Phones were raised again, but now they were pointed at Daniels, not Naya. Dr. Graham lifted Naya's wrists gently, examining the red marks forming beneath the cuffs. His face hardened. "This is excessive force," he said coldly, "on a medical professional, on hospital property, during her shift." Daniels bristled. "Sir, I have the authority to detain suspected—" "No," Graham interrupted. "You have the authority to follow the law, and you violated it the moment you put your hands on her without probable cause." Naya's voice cracked weakly for the first time. "Dr. Graham, I don't want trouble." He turned to her, his expression softening instantly. "Naya, you didn't create this trouble." He looked back at Daniels. "He did." Daniels felt the walls closing in, but his pride clawed for a way out. He puffed his chest. "Look, if she's really a nurse—" "If," Graham snapped, "you are speaking about the head trauma responder for 2 critical patients today, one of whom survived because of her direct intervention." Naya shook her head, embarrassed. "Dr. Graham—" "Yes," he continued firmly, "and one of whom is still alive because you refused to leave their bedside for lunch until the replacement nurse arrived. Don't argue with me. I review the logs." The crowd was silent now, all eyes on Naya, all respect suddenly shifting toward her. Daniel stammered, "I didn't know." "You didn't ask. You didn't speak. You didn't investigate. You didn't observe.
You acted on assumption and you humiliated one of the most dedicated professionals in this hospital. A beat of silence. Then Dr. Graham said the words that made every phone hit record. Officer Daniels, take off the handcuffs right now. Daniels clenched his jaw. Sir, I can't do that without... Do it, Graham ordered, stepping closer, before I call internal affairs myself. That changed everything. Daniel's face went pale. The crowd leaned in. Slowly, reluctantly, he reached for the cuffs. The click as they opened sounded like thunder. Naya rubbed her wrists gently, trying not to wince. Dr. Graham helped steady her.
The crowd applauded, soft at first, then louder. Not because the conflict was over, but because they'd never seen someone in power stand up publicly, firmly and without hesitation, for someone who'd been mistreated. Daniels muttered, "This is being blown out of proportion." Dr. Graham pivoted toward him. "Oh, officer, we haven't even begun." A chill shot through the air. People exchanged looks. Phones kept recording. And just when Daniels opened his mouth to defend himself again, 2 hospital security officers rushed out of the entrance, breathless. "Dr. Graham, we need you inside immediately," one said. "It's about him." Every head turned. "About who?" Graham demanded. The security guard pointed directly at Officer Daniels. "Your body cam footage was just requested by headquarters," he said, panting, "and the chief wants to speak with you." He pointed again, this time at Nia. "And with her." The crowd erupted. Daniel stumbled backward, bewildered. "What? Why? About what?" The security guard swallowed. "It turns out, this isn't the first time you've detained the wrong person." A murmur of shock ran through the crowd. Daniel's eyes widened, his control, his authority, his certainty, all crumbling in real time. Nia watched him, silent, still shaking. She didn't know yet what was coming. She didn't know that the humiliation she'd suffered today was about to flip in the most unimaginable way. Because within the next hour, the person this officer had laughed at, mocked, and handcuffed would be sitting in a private office across from the CEO of the entire hospital system. And the truth that came out of that meeting would change everything. For her, for the officer, for the entire city.
Officer Braden Locke leaned back on his heels, eyes locked on Maya with that same mocking grin. The kind that said he'd already decided who she was, what she was worth, and how this was going to go. To him, she wasn't a nurse. She wasn't a woman on break. She wasn't a person with a name or a life or a purpose. She was just someone he could push around. And that was the moment, right there in the alley behind a hospital cafeteria, when everything took a sharp, dangerous turn. Maya's chest tightened as another pair of officers rounded the corner. They walked in slow, self-assured strides, like they were arriving at a scene they'd already rehearsed in their heads. One of them snorted. "That her? The thief?" Another came right up to Maya's face and said, "You've got some nerve stealing inside a hospital. Medical staff, huh? Nice costume." Costume. The word hit her harder than the shove. She had survived 14-hour shifts, held dying hands, stitched wounds, stopped seizures, and once performed CPR for 9 straight minutes until her arms went numb. But to them, she was playing dress-up. Her badge still dangled from her neck. Her scrub still had faint stains from the morning rounds. Her lunch still sat uneaten in the bag tossed to the ground. But they didn't look at any of that. They only looked at her skin. Braden snatched her ID from where it hung. A flick of his thumb. A quick glance. Then a full, ugly laugh. Maya Brooks, huh? Cute name. Maybe next time don't steal things from people who actually matter. Maya blinked. Steal what? You didn't even tell me what... He cut her off by holding up a hospital visitor's wallet, one that had been found near where she was sitting. A plant. A setup. They already had a script and just needed someone to pin it on, and she, apparently, was perfect. The officers circled her now, not rushing, not panicking. Slow, like wolves closing around a single target. One whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. She's shaking, scared. Guilty people always shake. Maya wasn't shaking. She was furious. But they didn't care what was real. They cared how it looked. A small crowd of hospital staff began gathering near the back entrance, drawn by the raised voices. Some whispered, "That's Maya. What's happening? She would never steal. Why are they treating her like that?" But none stepped forward. Not yet. Not until they understood what was happening. Maya swallowed a rising wave of humiliation as her coworkers stared, the same people who had seen her save lives just hours earlier. Now they watched her being handcuffed like a criminal. Officer Locke leaned close again, voice low and vile. "You act smart, you talk smart, but I know your type." Her jaw tightened. "You don't know anything about me." He smirked again, that same casual cruelty. "Sure I do. I've arrested 100 like you, always playing hero until you get caught." The other officers laughed, and something inside Maya began to crack. Not from fear, but from a truth she'd learned working ER shifts for 8 long, brutal years. It's not the threat that breaks you. It's the humiliation. And Officer Locke knew how to weaponize humiliation like an art form. He tugged the cuffs tighter, deliberately, until she winced. "Relax," he muttered. "Won't be long. Director's on his way down. He'll confirm the theft, and then you're ours." The way he said ours made her stomach turn. But it was that last sentence, "The director will confirm it," that sparked something strange. Because Maya knew the hospital director, and he knew her. He knew her work ethic, her record, her reputation, and he definitely knew she wasn't a thief. So why were the police so confident? Why did they seem sure the director would back them up? Unless this wasn't about theft after all. Unless someone higher up had pushed this. Unless someone wanted her gone. Officer Locke casually leaned against the wall, crossed his arms, and muttered to the others, "I swear this is the easiest case we've had all month." Maya lifted her chin. Something inside her, something fierce, something unbreakable, flared back to life. Because there was one thing they still didn't know. This wasn't just a nurse. This wasn't just a woman on break.
This was the woman who had helped the hospital director rewrite the entire protocol system last year, including the procedures these same officers were about to violate. And in less than 5 minutes, they would regret every second of this. The officers straightened the moment the back entrance doors swung open. Footsteps echoed, sharp, unhurried, carrying a weight that made every nurse in sight instinctively move aside. And then he appeared. Dr. Leonard Hale, hospital director, a man whose presence alone could silence an entire boardroom. Tall, silver hair, immaculate suit, and a gaze cold enough to freeze an argument mid-sentence. But today, that gaze wasn't cold. It was furious. Not loud, not explosive. Worse, controlled, quiet, dangerous. The kind of fury that meant someone was about to lose their job, or their life savings, or their career, and wouldn't even see it coming. Officer Locke plastered on a proud, arrogant smile as he gestured toward Maya like he'd just caught the city's most wanted fugitive. "Director Hale, we apprehended the suspect you reported. Caught her outside trying to hide. While it's right here." He puffed out his chest. The other officers nodded, confident, smug. They expected praise. They expected validation. They expected the director to say, "Good work, officers." But he didn't. He didn't even
blink. His eyes went directly, sharply, dangerously to Maya. "Maya," he said, breath tight, "are you hurt? Not, are you guilty? Not, why did you do it? Not, what happened? Just one thing. Are you hurt?" That single question made Officer Locke's smile falter. Just a little. Maya shook her head, though her wrists throbbed from the cuffs. "I'm okay," she muttered, steady but trembling inside. Dr. Hale exhaled slowly, too slowly, and turned back to the officers. "What exactly," he asked softly, "did you arrest my nurse for?" Locke stepped forward confidently. "She stole a patient's wallet. We found it right next to her seat." The director lifted a brow. "Right next to her, on her break, in plain sight?" "Yes, sir," Locke said proudly, "caught red-handed." The director stared at him, long enough for the silence to feel suffocating. Then, "Where is the hospital surveillance footage?" Locke's jaw twitched. "Well, the call said, we didn't check it yet." The director's voice dropped to a chilling calm. "You arrested a member of my medical staff without verifying a single second of footage?" Officer Locke swallowed. The other officers shifted. Someone cleared their throat. The director stepped closer to Locke, close enough that the air changed. "Where," Dr. Hale asked, "did the accusation even come from?" Locke brightened again, confident. "From your office. Dispatch said the report came from your desk." The director's face froze. Not blinking, not breathing, just still. Then, slowly, deliberately, he pulled his phone from his pocket, tapped the screen 3 times, and turned it around. The call log glowed bright. No outgoing calls, no dispatch contacts, no report, nothing. He spoke softly, each word like a knife. "I didn't call anyone." Officer Locke's confidence evaporated instantly. "What, but dispatch, they said," the caller claimed. Dr. Hale took a step closer, voice steady as steel. "Someone used my name to frame a nurse who has worked in my hospital for 8 years. Someone planted evidence on her. Someone tried to drag her reputation through the mud." He leaned in, inches from Locke's face. "And you believed it." The officers glanced at each other, confused, nervous, shaken. Officer Locke forced a stiff laugh. "Sir, Director Hale, all due respect, the wallet was found with her—" "No," Hale said, "it was planted." Locke blinked. "What proof do you have of that?" The director lifted his hand slowly and pointed up. All heads turned. Right above Maya's lunch spot, a blinking red security camera, fully operational, high resolution, recording everything. Officer Locke's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Dr. Hale crossed his arms. "Shall we watch the footage," he murmured, "and see exactly who put the wallet there?" And then, as if the universe wanted to make this moment even more dramatic, one of the nurses ran out with her phone in the air. "Sir, security just checked the footage."
She panted, breathless, shaking. Dr. Hale took the phone, watched for 3 seconds. Only 3. His face went white, his jaw clenched. Then he turned the screen toward the officers, and what they saw made one of them whisper, Oh no. Because the person who planted the wallet, the person who set Maya up, the person who dragged her into this, wasn't her, wasn't a patient, wasn't even hospital staff. It was someone the officers knew, someone they'd worked with, someone who had every reason to hate Maya's new safety reforms, someone who wanted her gone.
A
A silence so heavy it felt physical settled over the back corridor. The only sound was the faint hum of hospital lights, and Maya's unsteady breathing as she watched Dr. Hale's expression harden into something she had never, not once in 8 years, seen on his face. Not anger, not disappointment, betrayal. Slowly, he turned the phone back toward himself, watching the damning footage again, jaw flexing harder each second. Officer Locke stepped forward, his voice cracking. "Sir, who is it? Who put it there?" Dr. Hale didn't answer, not immediately, because the video left no room for doubt. There on the screen, walking into the lunch area with quick, sharp movements, was nurse supervisor Carol Ames. The same supervisor who'd complained for months that Maya was shaking things up too fast. The same supervisor who'd been forced to rewrite her outdated training modules because Maya pushed the hospital into modern, safer procedures. The same supervisor who got written up last week because Maya caught her falsifying supply logs. And the footage didn't show a moment of hesitation. It showed intent, purpose. She marched straight to Maya's lunch table, looked around, reached into her pocket, pulled out a man's leather wallet, and slipped it right between Maya's coffee and book. Then she smiled. A small, cruel, satisfied smile. The kind a person wears when they believe no one will ever catch them. The video froze on that exact frame. That smile. That coldness. Officer Locke's throat clicked. That's your supervisor. Maya felt something inside her crack, not emotionally, but in understanding. A betrayal that made sense. A target that finally had a motive. Dr. Hale exhaled slowly, like he was forcing himself not to break something. "She framed her," he said softly. "Carol set Maya up, and she used my name on the dispatch call to make sure the police believed it?" Locke paled. The younger officer stepped back, whispering, "We cuffed the wrong woman." Dr. Hale finally turned toward Maya again. "Maya," he said, voice tight with regret, "I am so deeply sorry." She shook her head quickly. "This isn't your fault." But it was someone's fault. Someone still inside this building. Someone who thought she'd won. Dr. Hale looked at the officers with a new tone, one that made every hair on Maya's arms rise. "Uncuff her." Officer Locke scrambled to obey, hands shaking as he removed the handcuffs he so confidently slapped on her just minutes ago. Maya rubbed her wrists, red and sore, but her eyes were locked on the hospital hall behind them, because there, at that exact moment, Carol Ames turned the corner, completely unaware, straightening her badge, smoothing her scrubs, smug, self-satisfied expression on her face. Like she was coming to watch the final blow, like she expected to see Maya humiliated, defeated, maybe even walked out the doors by security. But instead, she saw something else. Entirely. Maya-free. The officers frozen, and Director Hale staring at her like she was a stranger who'd broken into his home. Carol's smile faded slowly, painfully slowly, as she took in the scene. "What's going on?" she forced out, voice trembling. Officer Locke glanced at Hale, unsure, but Hale stepped forward, phone still in his hand. "Carol, we need to talk." She swallowed, hard. "Did something happen?" Maya didn't speak, didn't move, didn't blink. She just looked at the woman she once trusted and watched guilt flicker for just a split second in Carol's eyes. Dr. Hale lifted the phone between them, pressed play. The footage began to loop. Carol planting the wallet, Carol glancing around, Carol smiling. She stiffened, her face drained of color. That's not... This is taken out of context," Officer Locke muttered. "How do you take planting a wallet out of context?" Carol pointed desperately at Maya. "She's dangerous. She's reckless. She undermines procedure." Maya stepped forward, her voice soft but lethal. "I save lives, Carol. That's the procedure." Carol shook her head rapidly. I would never. This is wrong."
Dr. Hale's voice cut through her excuses like a blade. You framed a nurse. You lied to police. You used my name to file a false report, and you jeopardized this hospital's integrity. Carol's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Not a word, not a defense. Because there was no defense. Not anymore. Dr. Hale looked at the officers. Take her. Carol's eyes widened. Wait, Leonard, please, you can't. I have seniority. I've been here for 25 years. That's exactly how long it took you to believe you were untouchable. The younger officer stepped forward with cuffs. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Maya felt herself breathe. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because when Carol was escorted out, tears streaming down her face, something else unfolded. A patient stepped into the hallway confused and shaking. Director Hale? That's my wallet, but I never said it was stolen. And suddenly, everything made sense.
The corridor, moments ago buzzing with confrontation, fell into a stunned, uneasy quiet. The patient, a thin, older man in a faded windbreaker, stepped forward slowly, clutching the strap of his hospital bag. His voice shook, not from weakness, from fear. "That's my wallet," he repeated softly, eyes darting from Maya to Dr. Hale to the officers. "But I never told anyone it was stolen." Dr. Hale stepped forward gently. "Mr. Rowland, are you sure?" The man nodded. "I thought I misplaced it weeks ago. I didn't report anything." He swallowed hard. "Why did someone say I accused her?" Maya's chest tightened in confusion. She had seen hundreds of cases, hundreds of accusations, hundreds of misunderstandings. But this was different. Mr. Rowland looked down at his hands, bruised knuckles, trembling fingers that told a story of their own. "Carol came into my room last night," he whispered. "She said she'd help me get my wallet back, told me she'd track down whoever stole it." Dr. Hale exchanged a sharp glance with Maya. "She didn't tell us any of this," Hale said quietly. "No," Mr. Rowland said. "She also told me not to talk to anyone else. Said if I did, security might misinterpret what I'd say." Officer Locke sucked in a breath through his teeth. "Misinterpret," he echoed. "That sounds like coaching." But the patient wasn't done. There was something else eating at him. He rubbed his forehead, eyes glistening. "I didn't want trouble," he said. "I didn't want anyone fired or blamed. I just wanted my identification back." He looked at Maya, truly looked at her, and guilt washed across his face. "I never said you stole from me. Never." Maya felt her stomach twist into a knot. She didn't know whether to be relieved or furious. But then Rowland's voice cracked. "She told me I had unpaid hospital fees, that I needed to cooperate if I didn't want the police involved. She said you were the one who had access to my room." Maya froze. That's when Dr. Hale understood. Carol wasn't just jealous. She wasn't just bitter. She wasn't just threatened by Maya's competence. She had a plan, a long-term poisonous plan. And the wallet wasn't about theft at all. It was a lever, a weapon, a story she crafted, quietly, carefully, to get Maya suspended or removed. A story she rehearsed into this vulnerable old man until he was too scared to refute it. Dr. Hale inhaled sharply. She was preparing to claim patient neglect or improper access. If Maya was fired for misconduct, Officer Locke finished the sentence for him. Carol would take her job. The truth crashed over the group. Carol hadn't framed Maya out of spite. She framed her out of ambition. A promotion, a raise, a new senior role that opened last week, the one Maya had been quietly shortlisted for. Maya felt her pulse pounding in her ears. She already suspected something personal, but not this. Mr. Rowland's voice trembled again. "She told me you were dangerous," he whispered to Maya. "But you saved my life last month. I remember."
Maya blinked hard, her eyes burning. Dr. Hale put a hand on her shoulder, grounding her as the room swallowed the truth. Officer Locke stepped forward, professional tone returning. "Mr. Rowland," he said gently, "can you tell us exactly what Carol said? Every detail. This could be important." The man nodded. But as he opened his mouth, a loud shout echoed from down the hall. "Locke, emergency call for backup. It involves Carol Ames." The officer spun toward the voice. Dr. Hale stiffened. Maya's heartbeat spiked. Mr. Rowland shrank back. "What now?" the younger officer muttered. But deep down, everyone already knew. A person like Carol doesn't go down quietly. She had been caught on camera, exposed, cornered, and desperate people don't think rationally. Dr. Hale whispered the words no one wanted to hear. "She's trying to cover her tracks." Maya clenched her fists, not because she wanted revenge, but because she just realized something chilling. This wasn't just about a wallet. This was about a threat that wasn't over, not even close. And now, Carol wasn't just running. She was trying to destroy every piece of evidence left behind.
Chaos was already spilling into the corridor before Maya, Dr. Hale, and the officers even reached the corner. Nurses huddled near the walls, whispering anxiously. A cart lay overturned, bandage rolls scattered across the floor like confetti. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to make the hall feel unstable, like the building itself could sense the unraveling. Officer Locke's radio crackled violently. "Officer down, no injury, but Carol blew past us. She's heading toward the admin wing." Locke cursed under his breath. "Of course she is," Dr. Hale muttered. "That's where HR keeps personnel files." Maya felt a jolt shoot through her chest. Her file, her evaluations, her signed commendations, her records of perfect attendance, her documentation of patient saves, and most importantly, her complaint against Carol from 2 months ago, the one she never officially submitted because she didn't want drama. If Carol destroyed that, she could rewrite Maya's entire history. Officer Locke spun around, urgency crackling off him. "Maya, stay behind us. Carol's panicked. Unpredictable people make dangerous decisions." But Maya didn't stay behind. She didn't freeze. She didn't collapse. She didn't retreat. For once in her life, she walked forward. Not recklessly, but with the quiet fury of someone who has been patient for far too long. As they turned the corner toward the admin wing, they saw her. Carol, frantically shoving papers into a shredder, her hair wild, her badge swinging violently from its lanyard. Sweat drenched her forehead. Her eyes, usually sharp and calculating, looked manic, cornered, desperate. When the shredder jammed, she let out a scream of frustration and slammed her fist against it. That's when she noticed the reflection behind her in the glass office wall. She turned, her eyes locked on Maya. Those eyes didn't show remorse. They showed rage. "You ruined everything," Carol hissed. Maya stepped forward, heart pounding but voice steady. "No, Carol, you did. I just won't let you drag me down with you." Officer Locke approached cautiously, palms raised. "Carol, step away from the machine. We need to speak with you." "No," she screamed, backing toward the desk drawer like a threatened animal. Her fingers latched onto the handle. Dr. Hale's eyes widened. "Maya, stay back!" Too late. Carol yanked the drawer open, but instead of a weapon, she grabbed a stack of files. Personnel reports, HR evaluations, complaint records, all the ammunition she'd planned to use to bury Maya for good. "You think anyone will believe you?" Carol snapped, waving the papers like a blade. "You think anyone cares about some charity case nurse who got lucky enough to work here? You think you're irreplaceable?" Maya breathed in deeply. And then, for the first time since this nightmare began,
She spoke with every ounce of truth she'd been swallowing for years. "I don't think I'm irreplaceable," Maya said. "I think I earned my place here. Every late shift, every double, every patient I sat with until their family arrived, every time I saved someone's life while you were hiding in the supply closet texting." Nurses behind them exchanged quiet gasps. Maya's voice grew stronger. "And the only reason you're trying to destroy my reputation is because you couldn't destroy my work." Carol's hands trembled. "You don't know anything about what I've sacrificed," she spat. "No," Maya said softly, "but I know you were willing to sacrifice me." That landed like a hammer. Officer Locke stepped in. "Carol Ames, at this time—" But Carol cut him off, slamming the files against the desk. "You think arresting me will fix anything? You think anyone will believe a nurse over hospital security?" Dr. Hale stepped forward at that.
They will when they see the footage. Carol's face drained of color. "What footage?" "The cameras," Hale said simply. "The ones you forgot about when you dragged Maya across the lobby." Carol staggered backward like she'd been shot. "And the audio systems," Maya added quietly. "The ones the hospital upgraded last month. Every word you told Mr. Rowland recorded." Carol's breath hitched. Locke moved in more firmly this time. "Carol Ames, you are under arrest for filing a false police report, coercion of a patient, obstruction, and attempted destruction of evidence." He reached for her arms. But Carol was still staring at Maya, like she couldn't believe a girl she dismissed as small, quiet, replaceable, had brought an empire crashing down without lifting a single violent hand. The handcuffs clicked. Her expression twisted. "You think you've won," she whispered. But Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to, because across the corridor, the staff, the same people who watched her be dragged and humiliated, now watched her stand tall, steady, and unshakable. As Carol was escorted away, the hallway fell silent, not with fear, with respect. Maya had been silenced, dismissed, shoved aside, and nearly erased. But now she was the strongest voice in the room. And this hospital had finally seen who she really was. A nurse, a protector, a survivor, and someone who wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The courtroom felt too small for the size of the truth that was about to drop. Lena didn't move, didn't break eye contact, didn't so much as blink. She just stood there with that folder tucked under her arm like it was a casual Tuesday, while Officer Briggs looked like a man watching his own future slipping under a closing elevator door. Judge Herrera finally exhaled. A slow, steady breath, the kind that comes right before someone decides to throw gasoline on a fire and light a match. "Ms. Carter," the judge said, voice razor calm, "what exactly is it that we need to see?" Lena lifted the folder, opened it, and the entire room leaned forward, like gravity had shifted. Inside wasn't chaos, it was precision. Tabs, highlights, dates, receipts. The kind of paperwork that only appears when someone has been quietly preparing for war long before the first shot was fired. "This," she said, sliding the first document onto the bench, "is Officer Briggs's disciplinary record. Sealed, but not sealed well enough." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Briggs's jaw clenched, so hard the tendons popped. His attorney whispered, "Oh God," under their breath. Because this wasn't a slap. This wasn't a warning. This was a public unmasking. Lena placed a second sheet down. "And this," she continued, "is the body cam report from the department audit.
The one where Officer Briggs, she paused not for drama but for accuracy, was found to have selectively deactivated recording during 4 separate stops involving black citizens. Another ripple. The judge blinked twice, stunned. Lena didn't even blink. And this, she said, placing down a 3rd page like it was a card in a poker game she had already won, is the statute he violated on the day he assaulted Miss Price. The judge's eyes went wide. Wait, you're the author of this amendment? Yes, Your Honor. I drafted it, I advocated for it, I testified for it, and I pushed it through committee when unions swore it would never pass. I know every word, every comma, every loophole, and every place where officers like Briggs thought they could wiggle through. Briggs went red, deep, furious, panicked red. This is, he stammered, but no sentence would form. Because the room wasn't his anymore. It belonged to the truth Lena just detonated. Judge Herrera turned to him slowly. Officer Briggs, she said, do you understand the severity of what's being presented? He swallowed hard. His voice cracked. This is out of context. No, Lena said softly. This is accountability. Then she slid one last document forward, the one she'd saved for the kill shot. A transcript, typed, time-stamped, identical to one sitting somewhere in Internal Affairs. But IA hadn't moved on it. She had. This, she said, is the interview where Officer Briggs admits that he lost patience with Miss Price during the arrest, that he used force to expedite compliance, and, she flipped the page, where he states he didn't believe the statute applied to him because, and I quote, citizens don't usually know the law well enough to challenge it. The room froze. Then Judge Herrera said the one sentence that changed everything. Officer Briggs, return to your seat, now. He didn't move fast enough. Now. His boots suddenly felt too heavy, his badge too bright, his hands too exposed. He walked back with the slow, stumbling steps of a man realizing his armor wasn't armor at all. It was paper. When he sat, Lena turned to the gallery, to Miss Price. To everyone who had ever been shoved aside, talked down to, dismissed, or bullied because someone with a badge assumed they wouldn't fight back. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Your Honor, she said, what happened to Miss Price isn't unusual. But today, finally, the response is. The courtroom went silent.
Even the fluorescent lights seemed to quiet themselves. And then Judge Herrera leaned forward, hands clasped, jaw locked. Miss Carter, she said, proceed. The room erupted, not in noise, but in a collective realization. Briggs wasn't just losing a case. He was losing the protection he'd always relied on. And for the first time since the incident, Ms. Price sat up straighter. Shoulders uncurled, eyes lighting with something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Lena closed her folder with a soft click. The sound was gentle, but Briggs heard it like the slamming of a cell door.
The air in the courtroom felt electric, alive, crackling, charged with the kind of tension that happens only when power begins to shift. This wasn't just a hearing anymore. It was a reckoning. Judge Herrera sat back, elbows on the bench, the weight of what she'd just seen settling on her shoulders like fresh cement. She didn't look angry. She looked awake, like someone who just realized the rules she'd trusted were being bent in ways she never truly understood. Miss Carter, she said, her voice steady but tight, you may proceed with your closing statement. Lena stepped forward. Not fast, not theatrical, just deliberate. Like each step was chosen with intention, like each inch she moved was a reminder that the very ground Officer Briggs walked on was no longer his. She placed her hands on the podium, but she didn't speak to the judge. She turned and spoke to the room, to Miss Price,
to the officers watching, to the citizens sitting shoulder to shoulder, wondering if their voices ever mattered. And yes, to Briggs, whose face had gone pale as wet paper. "Your Honor," Lena began, "this case isn't just about force. It's not even about compliance. It's about entitlement." Whispers rose, then died instantly. Officer Briggs believed he could hurt Miss Price because he assumed she didn't know the law. He assumed no one would stand with her. He assumed, like too many in his position, that authority is something you wield, not something you earn. She paused. Miss Price didn't raise her voice. She didn't resist. She didn't threaten anyone. She was simply a black woman exercising her rights. A beat. And for him, that alone was provocation. The judge shifted. Briggs flinched. Someone in the gallery whispered, "Amen." Lena continued, her voice deepening with controlled fire. The law he broke, the amendment he ignored, was designed to stop exactly this kind of abuse. It was written for people like Miss Price. It was written because of officers like Briggs. Her eyes locked on his for half a second, long enough to make him look away. "And today," she said, "for the first time since this happened, Miss Price isn't alone. She's standing with the law behind her, and she's standing with the truth behind her." The judge leaned forward, listening, really listening. "So I ask for full disciplinary proceedings. I ask for suspension without pay pending investigation. I ask, Your Honor, that the statute be enforced exactly as written. Because if the law doesn't apply to the people enforcing it," she shook her head slowly, "then it doesn't apply to anyone." Silence. The kind that weighs, the kind that decides. Judge Herrera closed the file, folded her hands, and exhaled, a long, decisive breath. "Officer Briggs," she said, "please rise." He stood, stiff, trembling.
After reviewing the evidence, the testimony, and the disturbing admissions, this court finds grounds for immediate suspension and referral to the State Oversight Committee for a full misconduct review. A collective gasp surged through the gallery. Briggs' attorney sank into their seat. Miss Price covered her mouth with both hands as tears spilled over her fingers. But the judge wasn't done. "It is the opinion of this court that Officer Briggs violated Statute 41C in exactly the manner Miss Carter described, and therefore, effective immediately, you are removed from duty." Briggs staggered. Actually staggered. His badge, still clipped to his chest, suddenly looked like a weight dragging him down. "And officer," the judge added, voice low with melancholy disappointment, "you should have known better. The law was clear. The author made sure of that." All eyes swung to Lena. A murmur rippled through the courtroom, respectful, stunned, electric. Lena didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She didn't wink at Miss Price or smirk at Briggs. She simply nodded once, accepting the moment the way someone accepts gravity, fully, calmly, without theatrics. Because power wasn't in the performance. It was in the truth. The bailiff stepped toward Briggs. He backed up a step, shaking his head. But resistance now would only deepen the grave he'd already dug. He handed over his badge. The clink on the table sounded final. Miss Price sobbed, quiet, relieved, broken open with gratitude. Lena walked over, gently touching her shoulder, and whispered, "I told you. The law was written for you." Miss Price grabbed her hand with trembling fingers. And that's when it happened. The gallery stood. Not loud, not wild, not chaotic, just rising, all together. A soft, powerful standing ovation. Not for drama, for dignity, for justice, for the moment a black woman who was shoved, slammed, humiliated, and ignored finally saw the system bend toward her instead of away from her. Lena didn't turn around, didn't bow, didn't acknowledge the applause. She walked Miss Price out, slowly, calmly, protectively. Because justice wasn't the victory, humanity was. As they stepped into the hallway, a young woman approached with a shaky voice. "Ma'am, when you walked in, they treated you like you didn't belong. How did you stay calm?" Lena glanced back at the courtroom doors, then back to the young woman. And with the softest, most devastatingly confident smile, she said, "I never needed to belong there. I wrote the rules they just tried to use against us." The hallway erupted in disbelief and laughter and admiration. And somewhere inside the courtroom, Briggs sat alone in the silence he used to command, realizing that the woman he bullied wasn't just another citizen. She was the architect of the law that ended his career.